call this open session back to order. I do have a recommendation out of close. I'll read that out. That the Council of the Township of Centre Wellington approve the tentative agreement between the Township of Centre Wellington and the Centre Wellington Staff Association. And further, that Council approve the tentative agreement between the Township of Centre Wellington and the Elora Firefighters Association and the Fergus Firefighters Association. Can I have a mover for that, please? Councillor Foster, seconded by Councillor Dunsmore. Any comments, questions about that? All in favor? Opposed? Sorry, Councillor Kittredge, how did you vote on that last one? Sorry, I didn't catch your vote on that, Councillor Kittredge.
It's pretty obvious. You asked if I opposed, and I put my hand up.
Yeah, it's not always obvious with the technology that we have. You kind of froze on my screen for a minute. Thanks for that. And that's carried. Moving back to our open session, consideration of reports. We have one item on the agenda today, and that's a borrowing bylaw. And I will turn things over to Dan to speak to his report on that. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you, Mayor Linton. So this report is in relation to the borrowing bylaw for 965 Gartshore Street. We did look at the two borrowing options available to the township, which is borrowing through Infrastructure Ontario or borrowing through Wellington County. And for 20-year rates, Infrastructure Ontario had the slightly better rate at this point in time. There is quite a process to get debt through Infrastructure Ontario. This is really step one with the application. We require a borrowing bylaw, which is approval by council to borrow for the purchase of 965 Gartshore Street. From there, over the next 2 weeks, Infrastructure Ontario will provide us with the debenture documents for review, which will include a legal review by our solicitors. And then on November 29th, at the scheduled council meeting, there will be a debenture bylaw for council to review and approve that outlines all of the details of the debenture itself. Looking at the financial implications side, with the purchase price of 3.95 million and additional ancillary costs such as land transfer tax, title insurance, and legal, we're looking at a total price of $4,044,225. Sorry, 93% of that is considered growth related as per our development charges bylaw. And as outlined to council in previous reports, the growth related portion only of this land acquisition is being funded through debentures. So principal and interest payments would be funded through development charges going forward. And the non-growth share, or 7% of the purchase price, is being funded through our land sale reserve. This is to ensure that the acquisition of the land is either development charges funded or land sale reserve funded, with nothing coming from water wastewater rates or taxation rates. I think that's everything I wanted to outline. I'd be happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Thanks, Dan. Questions, comments from council? Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Dan, for your report. I always struggle with the argument that we should borrow money because it doesn't get funded back from taxation or water rates or sewer rates. Our DCs are well over 30,000 per new house as it sits, and when we layer on $4 million for this land purchase and an additional 23 to 25 million for the entire project, totaling 27 million, we're layering on debt, and that debt has to be serviced. And whether we service that debt from development charges or taxation or sewer and water rates is immaterial. The facts are we have to make the payments. And when we create an obligation this large, we are hamstrung for all the other important infrastructure things we need to do. I'm also concerned that this is going to have the here we're all talking about the high cost of houses, and we're going to layer on 27 million for this new op center, 4 million for the land purchase. That's going to put upward pressure. It's going to force us to raise development charges. We're going to put upward pressure on development charges for new houses, and that's going to put upward pressure on the price of new houses at a time when many people are struggling with the high cost of housing. So I have concerns in that regard, but I also have great concern that here, once again, we've not really been given full and accurate information. We were told for the land purchase, it was 3.9 million. And yet here we are today learning that with the financing costs included, it's well into the 5.3 million range rather than the 3.9 and that we were told initially. So that's 33% more cost than what we were told initially for the land purchase. And when you apply that same arithmetic to the 27 million total for the entire operations center, the same thing's going to happen. And that 27 million, a third more with the financing costs added, is well into the 35, $36 million range. Not the 27 million we budgeted for and not the 27 million we were told. So I guess my question is to Dan Wilson. Dan, you're a CPA. You know how important accurate information is. Why haven't we included the financing costs and included the full and accurate total cost in our deliberations when we looked at these matters? We've understated the total cost.
Dan, when you respond to this, feel free to clarify any of the other costs that Councillor Foster has spoken about as well. Dan?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Linton. Thank you for your question, Councillor Foster. There are a number of pieces to your question. I just want to make sure I get to everything. So we did include the operations center in the calculation of the current development charge. That was part of the background study that was approved by council earlier this year. So that was already accounted for in the charge itself. With respect to debt, I completely agree that we need to be planning and using debt carefully going forward. And that's what we've been doing. We have a 10-year forecast on debt that very much accounts for the debt capacity that we have available to us and not wanting to come anywhere close to those limits set by the province. In terms of the purchase price for the land itself, the actual purchase price is right in line with what was in the CAO report from October. And previous reports has indicated that we were looking at debt financing for the growth related share of those projects. We feel like it's a smart way of using debt to focus in on the growth related aspects of a project rather than trying to burden tax dollars or water and wastewater rates with debenture requirements. So you'll see from the majority of our 10-year forecast, we're trying to look at growth related needs being funded through debt rather than non-growth related needs. Was there anything else I'm missing there in my answer, Councillor Foster?
Councillor Foster?
Well, thank you, Dan. Yes, there is something important missing. So what you're saying is we're going to pay this back, this eventually 27 million loan with the 27 million loan will be paid back from DCs, and you included them in the DC calculation. So what you're telling me then is if we had not done this $27 million plan, DCs would have been much lower going forward because we wouldn't have included that large amount in the calculation. So we've artificially increased the cost of new homes in our community because we've included this $30 million albatross in the calculations already. So thank you for your answer. Nevertheless, Dan, it's very troubling to me that the total cost, including financing, was never disclosed to us at the beginning. That's an inaccuracy, and that troubles me that we're not getting sufficient and complete information at the beginning. We all know if you're gonna spend 27 million or 4 million on the land purchase, you're gonna have to, you pay interest on it, and yet we never included the interest in the true cost calculations. That's very troubling, Dan. It's misleading, quite frankly, because we voted on 4 million and now it's 5.3 for the land purchase. That's 33% more than we thought. It's 33% more than we budgeted for. That's troubling. That's very troubling, Dan.
Yeah, I don't know where you're getting your numbers from, and please, you don't have to feel like you have to put more words in our treasurer's what he said, because that's clearly not what I heard, and I don't think anybody else heard what you just said he said. So anyway, is there anything that you, Councillor Foster, Councillor Foster, don't interrupt me. Dan, is there anything else that you wanted to?
Point of order, Mayor. Point of order.
I'll get to your point of order after I'm done speaking. Is there anything else that you wanted to add to those comments that Councillor Foster made?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Linton. The calculation of the development charge as approved by council earlier this year, as I mentioned, does include the operations center, and it also includes all other growth related needs required due to growth all the way to 2041. So the inclusion of the operations center doesn't have a significant impact on the development charge rates because there's so much else in there that, like I said, covers growth to 2041. So it wouldn't significantly drop the DC rate if the operations center was excluded from the DC. And just to reiterate what I said earlier, we had past reports with council that showed that the growth related share was going to be debt funded, and that was a prior discussion with council.
Thanks for that clarification, Dan. What was your point of order, Councillor Foster?
My point of order, Mayor, is that you've named me in your remarks and you've questioned my numerical calculation. So I'd like to speak to that, Mayor.
That's not a point of order.
Sure it does. Mayor Linton, you've questioned my integrity by questioning my calculations. I'd like to speak to that.
Councillor Foster, you just said to our Managing Director of Corporate Services that he was misleading in some of the information that he was providing. That actually is a point of privilege. Me calling you to task on the numbers that you're pulling out of the air, that is not a point of order. That's requiring evidence of something that you're saying that is completely misaligned to what we're hearing from our staff right now. So there's no point of order there. I'm not ruling that there's a point of order there.
Mayor Linton, you've accused me of pulling numbers out of the air. That's an attack on my integrity. I have the same accounting degree as our treasurer. I learned cost accounting in the same manner as Dan Wilson. So I take exception to you accusing me of pulling numbers out of the air.
Councillor Foster, one more outburst and I'm going to ask you to leave the meeting. Councillor Van Leeuwen.
Sorry, I don't have any questions on this. I knew that we were going to go through this funding question once we had purchased the land.
Councillor McElwain.
Bob has asked some really good questions. I don't have anything further.
Councillor Kittrus.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have a few questions. The 7% from land, is that from selling the other locations that the operations were done out of? That's my first question.
Dan, just make sure that we stay in open session material here. Dan?
So thank you, Mayor Linton. Yes, we had discussed with council prior that the non-growth share would be funded from the land sale reserve, which is where any land sales, the funding from any land sales would be allocated to. So that's probably a future conversation we need to have with council that gets into more details in that area.
Councillor Kittrus?
What is the interest rate on this loan? And is it locked in for a period of time? And for how long is that?
Go ahead, Dan.
Thank you, Mayor Linton. The current Infrastructure Ontario rate is 2.94%. We are looking to lock in an interest rate for 20 years, the full 20 years of the term of the debenture. Given low rates right now, it makes sense to lock in for the 20-year term. We will get a final Infrastructure Ontario interest rate in the next few weeks after they receive this borrowing bylaw. But like I said, the current Infrastructure Ontario rate for 20 years is 2.94%.
Councillor Kittrus?
So what is the total, what if you can lock it in for the 20 years, are you expecting to pay that off sooner, or are you going to go the full term, or what's the whole length of the time you need to finance this, and how much interest would that be?
Through Mayor Linton, I don't have the actual number of total interest over the 20-year term, but it would be paid off over the full 20 years. That would be one of the conditions of the debenture bylaw that council will see at the end of the month.
Councillor Kittrus?
I think it's important for the public to know how much interest there is on this, and would like to get that information. I'd like to just sort of say that I'm not really for this sale, and I haven't been for this kind of purchase. I feel that this purchase is way over market value. I feel that basically we've signaled to the public at large that we are willing to spend enormous amounts of money on property that can be achieved at a lower cost, but we're spending the maximum amount. I feel it's a very poor decision. I think we could have gotten comparable areas for almost half the value, and added that much to the cost. And so I really oppose this, and I would like a recorded vote.
Okay, we'll make sure that we do a recorded vote. Councillor Dunsmore?
Yeah, it's all information we've had before, and I'm in favor of this. So I want to thank you, Dan, for the work you put into this and for explaining it to us clearly.
Councillor McCray?
Thank you, Mayor Linton. I also would like to echo Councillor Dunsmore's comments. Thank you, Dan, and thank you to the rest of your team in terms of providing us with sufficient information to make a decision.
Thanks, councillors. I have a recommendation that the Council of the Township of Centre Wellington authorize the mayor and clerk to sign a borrowing bylaw with respect to the purchase of 965 Gartshore Street. Mover for that, please. Councillor Dunsmore, seconded by Councillor McCray, and I'll turn it over to Carrie to do a recorded vote.
Through you, Mayor Linton, Councillor Van Leeuwen,
Yes.
Councillor Foster,
$1.3 million of interest. No.
Councillor Foster, sorry, no. Councillor McElwain,
No.
Councillor McCray,
Yes,
Councillor Kittrus,
No.
Councillor Dunsmore,
Yes.
and Mayor Linton.
Yes.
That is carried.
Okay, moving on to bylaws. I have a recommendation here that bylaws 2021-054 be read a first, second, and third time and passed and signed by the mayor and clerk, and the corporate seal affixed. Mover for that, please. Councillor Dunsmore, second by Councillor McCray. All in favor? Opposed? And that's carried.
Point
Confirmatory
of order,
by,
Mayor. Point of order.
what's your point of order, Councillor Foster?
You have a motion and a seconder. Why is there no discussion?
Because we already had the discussion in the first part of that, significant
Yeah.
discussion.
You know, we, in our electronic meeting bylaw, we are to go around the room with 3 rounds of discussion. Today, we've had only 1.
Yeah, if you read the confirmatory bylaw, it says up to 3 times around the room. And I felt like as the chair of the meeting, we weren't hearing anything new and we had good discussion on the items. And so I made that call as chair. I have a confirmatory bylaw, that bylaw 2021-55, to confirm the proceedings of council at its special meeting held November 8th, 2021, be introduced a first, second, and third time and passed in open council. Mover for that, please. Councillor Dunsmore, second by Councillor Van Leeuwen. All in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. A motion to adjourn. Councillor Kittredge, second by Councillor Dunsmore. All in favor? And that's carried. Have a good rest of the day and a good week.